Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to teach you how to get started in PatternMaker Pro. PatternMaker Pro is software for drafting sewing patterns, and I'm the one that designed it, and I actually programmed it, and I sew and I draft. So it's very purpose built. Everything in the software is very specific to drafting sewing patterns, and it makes it very easy to use and also makes the process much simpler than what you're used to, either using other software like Illustrator or even just paper and pencil. I think you'll find it very satisfying and easy to use. One thing that's incredibly unique to the software is the ability to memorize the draft as you create it, and then you can recall it using a different set of measurements, so you don't have to do anything. It just does it automatically. This allows you to create original designs and then to share those designs with people of all different sizes. And the patterns are drafted to their actual measurements. And so these will fit better than anything you've ever created before. You own all of your designs with PatternMaker Pro. You can sell the patterns themselves if you wish. You can make garments and sell the garments. We hold no rights to anything that you do, so you're perfectly welcome to start a business using PatternMaker Pro by selling patterns or whatever you'd like to do. The PatternMaker Pro software is unique in several different ways. First of all, it is a one-time purchase. There is no subscription, so we want to make sure that you're perfectly happy with the software before you buy it. We've created a demo on the website that has everything the software has except for printing or output. So this gives you an opportunity to really beat on the program and make sure it's going to do what you want it to do. Also, the program can run offline. You don't need an internet connection to use it. And this opens up a lot more freedom for you if you're working on the road or in a location that doesn't have great internet access. Also, all the data you enter into the program, like your draft, like your measurements, it's all stored locally on your computer. It does not go up into the cloud. It does not reside on our servers. We have none of it. It's all local to your machine, so it's incredibly private and secure. So I want to show you how to get yourself set up using the demo. You don't need to buy the software to do anything I'm going to do in this video. And then you can kind of follow along. I can show you some of the unique features and how they work. And hopefully this will get you going. And I'm excited for you to give it a try. So to get started, I would recommend that you come over here to the Learn tab on the website. And you'll see we have some different resources here. The first thing is a measurement set. Now, you can go into the system and enter measurements for yourself or anybody and test this out. But I have some in here that just make really quick work of getting up and going so you can see how the program works. And my measurements are in here. I've also got a Barbie doll and then two other models. I would suggest that you go ahead and grab Susan's measurements. That's the one I'm going to be using. So select download and download those to your local machine. Also, you'll want to get the tutorial 001 Easy Fit Knit Block. Go ahead and download that to your machine. And finally, get this completed draft of the block and download that. So once you have those three files, then I think we're ready to get started. This is what you'll see when you open up the software. And the first thing we want to do is deal with the measurement file. You can go ahead and work with your measurements even before you have a draft open. It's kind of a separate thing. So you'll go up to measurements and you'll import measurement set and give the set a name. If you downloaded Susan, I suggest that you use that name again and include the units that the measurements were taken in. Susan is in millimeters. And then when you select the measurement unit, make sure that matches. So if you're taking your measurements in inches, then make sure you select inches here. It tells PatternMaker Pro how any conversions will take place. We do not have to draft in millimeters. We can draft in inches. But this selection here will tell PatternMaker Pro what it needs to do. And then you'll select Choose File and select the file that you downloaded. I'm not going to do this because I already have the measurements in here. So now we're ready to go ahead and start the draft. We'll select File, New Draft. Enter a name for the draft. We'll just call this 001 Susan. Now we need to select a unit. And Susan's measurements are in millimeters, but we don't need to use millimeters. I'm guessing a lot of you are in the US, so I'm going to select inches here. You can pick whatever unit you're most comfortable working in. The next item is whether we want to memorize this draft. PatternMaker Pro has the ability to recall drafts later using a different set of measurements. I have a video called Memorizing Sewing Pattern Drafts linked down in the description, and you'll want to watch that to learn how this works. But for now, let's just check the box. And now we have the opportunity to select which measurement set we want to use, and we're going to use Susan's, and we'll open the draft. So now, why don't we bring in that SVG file that we downloaded earlier with File, SVG, Import SVG, select the file and open. And there is the completed tutorial draft. Now notice our version didn't change at all here. As far as memorizing goes, PatternMaker Pro doesn't know you just did this. It's just here in the background for you to reference and use. It did not save this in the memorization in any way. This will just kind of go along with this draft, but it is, again, not part of the memorization process. So let's go up here and go back and select the little wrench, which is Utilities, and let's select this option right here, Display Names. And this allows us to toggle the names on and off, and you'll see that when I created these points, I named them. And these correspond to the lessons in the tutorial, so if you ever get stuck, you can go back in here and have a look at what I did for reference. I'm going to go ahead and leave those on and close this. And now I'm going to go back to the layers, layer visibility, and I'm going to hide this layer. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and bring the tutorial in for us to follow. We'll select Help, Import Draft Tutorial, and select the file on the machine. And there's the little tutorial box. So if you're ever working over here and the toolbox is too small, it has the ability to be resized. Just click and drag to put it wherever you would like. So let's go ahead and follow the tutorial for this first point. We're going to create the center neck back point. There's the points menu and create a free point. You'll see that the tutorial tells us which tool to use. And so it says that the starting point needs to be towards the left because we're going to draft towards the right. So I'm going to put it right here. The name of the point is center neck back, and I will leave it black. Now I want to show you that you can hold down the left mouse and pan. You can use your middle mouse button and scroll. And this workspace seems like it's quite infinite, but it actually isn't. So let's go back to the utilities and select this Show Workspace Canvas. So you can see I can scroll out and there is the boundary. And it does go a very long way to the right and to the bottom, but this corner is relatively close to where you're going to start. So you don't want to open up a draft and then be panning left and then start drafting. You could get outside of the box. You will have very unexpected consequences for going out the side of the box. So just be aware this is not infinite. Now let's move on to the next step. And this one just told us that we could turn the display names on, which I showed you how to do. And our next point is the center waist point. When you're drafting, almost every point that you make will be based on a point that exists, with the exception of that first one that we put on there. So this one is we're adding a point from a point. So that's in the points menu, the second item. And it's select the base point, which is the center neck back. That's this guy. And now we're presented with the distance that we want to move the point. And our instructions say we're moving in the Y position the center length back measurement. Let me explain the different movement within the workspace. The X position is horizontally, it's left and right. So if we put a value in here of 5 inches and then preview it, we just moved 5 inches from the center neck back to the right. If I put a negative sign in front of that and preview it, now we moved to the left. So if you want to move right, it's positive, left is negative. So let's put that back. And now let's move 2 inches in the Y position. We just dropped down. Now if I put a negative sign in it, we just went up. So I'm going to take that out. So the unique thing with PatternMaker Pro is that you will very rarely enter actual values in these boxes. Because of the memorization process, we don't really want to give PatternMaker Pro hard values, because when we recall it, we want it to look up the appropriate value. For instance, Susan's center length back measurement is different than mine. So when we recall this draft using my measurements, we want to tell PatternMaker Pro, use Lori's center length back, not Susan's anymore. So I'll show you how we do that. We're moving in the Y position, and so we're going to say we want to add a formula. And we have a number of ways to enter the formula in this box. In this case, we are to center length back. So I'm going to select from Susan's measurement set, find center length back, and calculate it. So that did two things. It put the formula in the box, and it also put the value up here. Now notice this is grayed out. I can't change the value anymore because we're working on a formula. Anything that you choose off of a measurement set is going to have little curly braces, and that is telling PatternMaker Pro, I don't want a value, I want a formula, I want a variable. So when this pattern is recalled, if I chose my set, it would say, okay, what's Lori's center length back? And it would put the number in. So that's what a formula is in PatternMaker Pro. So let's go ahead and finish this off. This is the center waist. And I've indicated to make it orange. You do you. This is just color coding that I like. And now I'm going to save that. And there's the point. Let's move on to the next one. This is the center hip point. So that's obviously below the waist. So it is also a point from point. We're going to select the center waist. And the Y direction, which is going down, we want the waist to hip side measurement. So I'll add formula and find the waist to hip side. Calculate it and preview it. There it is. So you get the general gist of how this works. So let's move on. Let's look at a couple more tools just to give you a better idea of the power that we have here. So let's move on to number 5, and you can see that this is different. Now this is getting a little more complicated. So let's do what it says, add point from the center neck back. And now we want to have the armhole length plus the armhole drop. So I'm going to add a formula, armhole length, and I'm going to go ahead and calculate it and preview it. So that would put it right here. But it says that we also want to add the armhole drop. So I'll come up here, add a plus sign, select from the set, and select armhole drop and calculate. Now notice that nothing changed. This value is the same as it was before. So let's look at why that is. I'm going to cancel out of this tool and go up to measurements, edit measurement set, and let's look at Susan's measurements. Armhole drop, it's set to 0. Now, why would you want to do that? Generally, when you're drafting block patterns, these are base patterns, and you're going to create all of your future designs off of these patterns. And I have some other videos to show you how this works, but that's generally how flat pattern drafting works. So I don't know what this is ultimately going to be. This could be a bodice that I turn into a skirt. This could be a top that flares out. I might want to do a really loose fit, and I might want to add 4 inches of ease to the bust. I might want to drop the armhole a couple inches even, depending, if I'm making a jumper. You just don't know. So what I would suggest is that all of your ease measurements, like here I've got the across back ease, the armhole drop, the bicep ease, they're all set to 0. Now, the reason that I can do this so efficiently is that I'm drafting my block, and then I want to go back and I want to draft another block to use as a basis for another design. When I recall this pattern, I just put ease in. I can put an inch drop at the armhole. I can add 4 inches to the bust and the waist. I can do whatever I want on that recall, and it's going to redraft the pattern, now adding that ease in. But obviously, it won't add the ease if it's not part of the formula. So let's close this. We'll go back to what we were doing here. And now you understand better why it's there. Even though it's set to 0, I need to have it in here because when I recall the pattern, it's not going to be 0 anymore. It's going to be whatever I need it to be, and the formula is already in here. If I just did armhole length with no drop and recalled it, I wouldn't have the opportunity to add that later. So it's always a really good idea to go ahead and add these ease measurements in, and then if you need them, they're there. If you don't, you can just set them to 0. So now let's preview that, and it's back where it was. We'll name this one the armhole height. And save it. So let's move on to step 6, and we get to use a different tool, and this one is another one that you're going to use all the time, so I want to show you how it works. A lot of times in drafting books, when you're following the instructions, it'll tell you that you need a point that is in relation to 2 other points. And that's what this one does for you. So we want add point from 2 points. And we're going to work off the center neck back, which is up here, and the armhole height, which is here. And continue. Now in this case, it says that we want the center for X and Y, and that's an option that we have here. The X position in the center, the Y position in the center, and preview, and there's the point. Now notice I could have said I wanted the X position of either of them or the Y of either of them, and I also have the option of adding additional values. And these are things that you'll find in drafting instructions. So that's why they're here. But let's save this one. And you can name things whatever you want. This is just how I like to do it. Use names that make sense to you. Now we're on to step 7, and we have kind of a different instruction here. We're still using add point from point, and we start with the center neck back. Now this time it says that we need to measure from the center neck back to the armhole curve point reference divided by 4. This is a really common instruction when you're drafting. It'll instruct you to measure an existing set of points as a value for the placement of another point. So this was really important that this was included into the program. So let me show you how that works. This is the Y position, and we want to go ahead and select the formula again. And this time, instead of selecting from the measurement set, we actually want to measure 2 points. So this will open somewhat of a tool in a tool, if you will. So select Measure Between Points. And it says we want center neck back to armhole curve point reference. So center neck back, armhole curve point reference. You'll notice that they turned an aqua color. And when we're done selecting points, we just select this button and now calculate. PatternMaker Pro just measured between those 2 points and gave you the value. You'll notice that this doesn't make a lot of sense to you. And that's because this is instructions for PatternMaker Pro. Remember that that's what this box always is. And this is a little hard for you to read. You don't know what this is. This is the point IDs for PatternMaker Pro to use when it's using a recall. But down here in a smaller font, you'll see that it gave you your names, so you can make sure that you chose the correct points. You'll also notice that the value here is in square brackets. When we're doing measurements, there are curly braces. When we're doing distances like this, it will be square braces like this. So now we have the measurement, but that's not what it told us to do. It told us to measure it and then divide it by 4. And again, that's easy. We just divide by 4. And until you're confident that you're entering these formulas correctly, just take a look. We've got 4.3. It's going to be 1 point something, right? So you want to kind of keep an eye on that just as a verification. So this point is done. Let's preview it. And that looks correct. We measured from here to here, and that's about 1/4 of the way. And we'll save that one. Let's go on to step 8. And this one is a little bit different. So we'll add point from point. We're supposed to select the center neck back. And this time, I'm going to make this a little bigger. We need to enter a value for the X position, which is horizontal, and the Y position. So it's telling us we need the neck measurement. Notice it's in curly braces. So add formula, select from the list. Susan's neck is called neck circumference. And we're going to calculate that. We can preview it. It's going to be way over here. And then it says to divide it by 5. That looks more correct. Now it says for our Y position, we want a negative 0.39 inches. And it's pointing out that that will move the point up. So let's zoom in here so you can watch it. And I'm just going to enter it in the value box. Let's just enter it positive to see what happens. It went down. We wanted it up, so there it went up. So you're perfectly fine to use values in the value box without doing a formula. Every time this pattern is recalled, it's going to use negative 0.39 in this value. And sometimes that's okay. Like this is just an arbitrary way that she chooses when she wrote these instructions to move this point for adult patterns. And it's going to stay the same pretty much for everybody. So that's fine. You're just going to have to make that call when you're working through these patterns and drafting instructions. What is going to change between person and person, and what's just kind of standard that you want to hard code in. So let's put the name in and save that. Now we're going to move on to step 9, because this is another really important thing that I need to point out to you. So we're going to do point from point. We're going to start with the armhole height point. And in this case, we are going to use the across back measurement plus the across back ease divided by 2. Okay, so let's get started. Let's do across back, calculate it, and add the across back ease, calculate it, It didn't change. As I said before, I don't put ease values in my flat standard drafts. And now it says we need to divide this by 2. So we could just put divided by 2 here, but we're not real sure about how PatternMaker Pro is going to process this function. We want to be very explicit about the order. So I'm going to put parentheses around this part of it. So this tells PatternMaker Pro, take the across back measurement, add the ease to it, and then divide that total by 2. We don't want to get it confused and have it maybe taking the across back ease, dividing it by 2, and adding it to the across back. So I'm sure you get what I'm saying here. You need to be very explicit, and you can add parentheses all over the place. Do what you need to do to get it to work, and then always do the calculate. Make sure that what it did makes sense to you, that it's doing the math in the order that you want it to. So let's go ahead and preview that. And there's the new point. And we'll save that. Now, before we move on, I just wanted to point out a few things here. Every time we use a tool, the version changed. Every step is saved. You don't ever save a PatternMaker Pro draft. It does it every time you save a tool. And this gives you the ability to come up here to File and Undo and keep an eye on that version and watch our point down here, and it's gone. And gone is gone. There is no redo here. But this can be really powerful. I've worked up to like version 68 on a draft, and for whatever reason had to go back. I'd go back to number 40 and start from there again. So it's very powerful and helpful. Another option that's available is the ability to save the current state of a draft. So let's say that you had a basic outline that you wanted to do, and then you were going to do some higher end manipulation to it. What you could do is get it to the basic point and then come up here and do File, Copy Draft, save that basic point out, and then keep going. And then you would have it always to go back to. Now this is not a save as. It does not save it and switch you to it. It actually just copies what you have here and puts it away for you to access later. It also copies all of those steps. So you could, work up to step 20. You could save a copy of it. Then you could keep going, and then you could decide, I'm going to open that other one and I'm going to step it back and look at something. And you've lost nothing. So just know that that's available to you here. The other thing I want to point out is because the program is saving all the time, you can just get out of it whenever you want. So even, I'm here on version 8, and for whatever reason, I need to look at an older one that I did. So I can go back here, I can open something else, and then when I want to go back to it, I just select it off of the list and it's open again. Notice that no measurements are selected. There's not a set that's active. This is intentional. We come up here to measurements and load set for active draft, and we can put Susan's measurements back in for us to pick from. The reason why it works that way is that you have the ability to change the measurement set you're using at any time. Let's say, for instance, you had 2 different sets for the same person, and one had a certain set of measurements and another one had a different set, and you needed both of them for some reason. You could come up here in the middle of your draft and load a different set. You can do that whenever you want, and all that does is populate those drop-down boxes. Now remember, if you're not using values, if you're using formulas, it doesn't matter, because whatever that name is on the set you chose is what PatternMaker Pro is going to remember. That's another reason you don't want to use hard values, is you can switch back and forth all the time. If you were running a tutorial, you'll notice that it's not here. So you will need to bring tutorials back in and then go ahead and move up to whatever step you were on. They do not persist with the draft. It's just an extra thing that you can run kind of in the background. We have a really extensive help system, and you can go up here and open the manual. It's actually online. It's on the website. But as you're using a tool, this is a link. So if I select that, it opens the exact page on the website. This gives you access just immediately if you have a question about how a tool works. So make sure to take advantage of that. So this was just a really quick down and dirty of some of the stuff in PatternMaker Pro. I'm not going to go through this whole tutorial and bore you to death. The tutorial tells you what tool to use, it tells you what to name it, and all the values are there in Susan's measurement set that you will need. You can use whichever name off of a set regardless of what my instructions said. So the one instruction that we saw said that we needed to use the neck measurement. In Susan's set, it was called neck circumference. It doesn't matter. You know what measurement correlates to the instructions, so pick the one that works for you. When you create a measurement set, you can name things anything you want. And then when they're recalled, it's going to bring the names that you chose up. So you'll need to correlate those to another set, but do what works for you. So as you can see, this is a very unique piece of software. I think this shows that you can draft with incredible precision and speed. None of us fit the standards of the stuff they sell in the store. It doesn't matter if you're buying ready-made clothes or you're buying sewing patterns. We don't fit in boxes well. I started sewing many years ago because my body does not work with anything that's sold in a store or sold in a pattern. That's why I created this software. You can make sewing patterns that fit you and your friends. You can sell them. You can collect measurements from people and create custom clothing for people. It's just limitless what you can do with this software. So I hope that you'll take advantage of the demo and go over there and start playing around with it. I hope it meets all the needs that you have. I have those tutorials over there. They're pretty easy to follow. It gives you a quick jump into the software. There are other YouTube videos that you'll want to watch just to get more familiar with the program. And if you find anything that's not working the way you think it should, or if there's a tool you think is missing, please do not hesitate to let me know. There's a contact form over on the website. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I'll see you later.